Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of the RunThrough Trails podcast. You won't recognize my voice as much as you used to. My name is Lewis Moses, now head coach at RunThrough, and I am covering for your regular host, James Tilley, but I once did co-host this podcast with James. When James asked me to cover for him this week, it was an absolute pleasure, and I jumped at the chance because I get to interview none other than Judith Wyder from Switzerland, who is one of my role models in the sport. So it's an absolute pleasure to have Judith joining us. Judith comes to us from Switzerland. She is, first and foremost, she is a family mum, and she is a mum before she is a trail runner, and she's known in the trail running world as Super Mum, or she's certainly referred to in a lot of the commentaries that I listen to as the sport's Super Mum. She is one of the best trail runners in the world, particularly over that 50k domain. She is a sponsored Red Bull and Hoka athlete, and this year alone, she was on some of the biggest podiums across the world, including Zagama, the OCC, and Marathon de Mont Blanc. Judith, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. How are you on this bright and early Monday morning?
Hi, and welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be there and talk with you. And thanks for the introduction. It feels really cool to hear. And is that really me?
It is you. I guess it's a bit it's a bit strange for me because just over a week ago I was in Sweden at the race in Kulmanen, and that was the first time I really got to see you race in person. That was the first time you raced against my wife Gemma, and you were out there in Sweden. And I remember certainly Gemma looked up to you, and you were one of the big names in the sport. And since we've both followed your journey, so it feels like a bit of a full circle, because that was now 3 years ago, and now I'm sat here interviewing a podcast. So it's been some journey since then, and hopefully we'll give people a bit of an insight into that journey and also what the future holds for you. But I do want to start off with, before we go into the trail running, a little bit about you, Judith. Because a lot of people will see you, they'll see you race, but quite often they don't necessarily see, the background of the athlete and how they got to the sport. So my opening question really is around that. So what attracted you to trail running in the first place, but also how is it with balancing family life? And give us a bit of an insight into Judith the mum before we go into the trail running side.
So there are two big questions, and I think two main questions too, because they show quite much why and where I am at the moment. I've come from orienteering. Orienteering is a quite well-known sport here in Europe, especially. I've been on high level there, world champion and European champs in orienteering different distances. So I've found my sport all through since I was really young. But after giving birth to my first daughter in 2017, it started to be hard to juggle orienteering and trail running, or orienteering and family, actually. So I swapped in the end of 2018 to trail running because just traveling was so hard. In orienteering, you need to train in the specific areas, and with a family, it makes it really hard. I actually didn't look for a new sport or a new kind of career, but I just wanted to see whatever I can do and find out how far I can get in trail running. So I was keen to see more mountains, keen to see more trails, and that was kind of why I started racing in shorter trail races, but also then progressing over the years to longers. And I got my first daughter in 2017. Raced trail running, for example, also Golden Trail World Series in Nepal. And then actually there I was pregnant to my second child as well. So now I have two daughters together with my husband, who is also in the trail running world with his different jobs. We're trying to juggle this kind of family life with trail running and training. But normally at home, when it comes to daily living, trail running is quite a small part, and the family life is the big part, as you have mentioned before.
Nice. Well, that's a great introduction and a great backstory. It was only this year at UTMB, I was stood watching the races, and we were identifying how many people had come from an orienteering background who were actually doing well at the front end of races. And it was significantly high, actually. um, yeah, I'm good friends with Chris Jones here in the UK, who's also a hooker athlete who comes from an orienteering background. And he and I were having a bit of a joke about how the orienteers make the best trail runners. So there must be something to it.
Trail running and orienteering, they're quite similar in case of running in the train. And in like we're used to run through forests, through open fields, and that helps in like running fast on trails as well. And I think we all have been training for many years, and it's just fun to find out how it works on longer distance, like Chris does as well on the 50K now. So it's really cool to follow along with these athletes as well, since we have been competing for many years together on the circuit. So
yeah, I bet it's quite cool to see, like watching everybody kind of come through and cross disciplines. But as you say, there's a lot of skills. I think one of the confusions may come with our audience is they'll think, oh, well, they lend perfectly together because you've got the running side, the aerobic side, and then the navigation side. But obviously not as much navigation in trail running as a sense of you have to stop and read the map and things. But from time to time, we do see people getting lost. So the skills do come in handy. But I think one of the big things for me, and you touched on it already in your introduction, is just that exposure to the outdoors. You see that with a lot of people who have a ski mountaineering background or people who spend time in the mountains, and particularly those who come from an orienteering background here in the UK, they've just been exposed to more outdoors than other people. And I find, I'm not sure about you, I find that really helps when it comes to being out there for long, long times in the mountains.
yes, of course it does. I mean, also only the passion about being outside helps to like really looking forward to be out there for a long time. And then of course also for I think especially juggling uncertain or predicted things helps as an orienteer, because in orienteering you never have predicted things. Kind of like you don't know what the course looks at the start, and in trail running you kind of know what is coming up. But actually, the situation never is as you've planned when it comes to weather, when it comes to food, to your athletes you're facing. So actually, this also is a good thing to have in your backpack to be able to juggle these situations.
Nice. I like the way you described that. Yeah, I call it like a toolkit, like a toolbox, where you've got to be able to like dip into the toolbox. And a great example, not a great example for you, but throwing off this year at the OCC with like a silly train crossing, and like, how do you prepare for that? And mentally being able to, prepare for that. And nothing can prepare you for it. Nothing about your preparation will have said, oh, I'm going to be prepared for that moment. But it's all those situations in the past where you dip into that mental toolbox and still have to find a way, right?
Right. Yeah. No, this situation is strange, and I definitely don't hope for it another time for any athlete. But I mean, it's, as I said, things can happen. And I mean, I could have said it's the worst competition ever, because probably the situation would have been different in the finish. And for sure it would have been. But on the other hand, it was a quite nice day. And yeah, I mean, I tried to do the best whatever I could. So that was just amazing to try to fight with your mind, but also with your body until the finish.
I think it was, amazing being there and like witnessing it. I was out watching the OCC because I had some athletes racing and kind of knew something had gone wrong because it was quite obvious how quickly the gap had appeared. But what was so good about that day for me was after the race was everybody was talking about it, but you didn't shine a light on it. You were just... you kind of brushed it off, and I know it would have been hurting inside and you're probably annoyed and frustrated, and I'm sure you had some things to say externally, but you focused on the positives, and I think that speaks volumes about you and your personality. So yeah, a big well done for that. And I think a lot of people will see that in the same light as, that somebody who doesn't take away from the competitors of what they've achieved, but actually focus on the positives. It does come across really well. So yeah, well done for that. It's one of the most bizarre situations I've ever seen in a trail race, that's for sure.
Yep,
and
for sure.
I want to go. I want to touch on the family a little bit more because I see them regularly at your races. I see them after races celebrating with you. And you said about juggling life. And one thing that always surprises me, particularly with mums, is one, how they juggle everything and fit everything in and manage to still go on and perform to the level they do. It's absolutely incredible. But also, how is it going back to the reality of being a mum? Because I've spoken to some mums in the past where they've achieved something on a weekend, and then literally the minute you cross the line, it's just back to being mum. And sometimes the children don't quite understand what you've achieved and what you've done, and then you have to be mum immediately.
Yeah, I mean, being a mom is the best thing that could happen to me. It's really beautiful. I love to be part of these two girls. But on the other hand, of course, I mean, it's the worst thing you can do if you want to be an athlete, because being honest, I mean, it's really hard to deal with all these different things. I mean, children who are more sick at home, you have like less sleep. This night, my daughter was like up several times, even though she's already 8, but she had some like trouble sleeping. So of course, my eyes are like kind of not as fresh as normally. But I mean, it gives you also a different view on sports. I mean, it's still important, but it's not the most important thing in life. And I think this gives you force for when you're at the starting line, when you've made it there, when the journey has been like lots of up and downs, but you kind of done this work, but you're there. It gives you kind of this energy to be able to push even more, because I mean, you've kind of done so much and probably not have the easiest path there. But on the other hand, you're like, now you're allowed to race and to do whatever you love the most. So why not do it as good as possible? And I think for me, this is kind of like why I've been like able to handle both things. But also like knowing they're in the finish and knowing they're there, it gives me so much motivation to see them again, because when I've done my thing, I want to be with them. So I want to share like normal day with them again. And that's kind of energy as well. And yeah, I've had them aside, but it makes it also harder. They're getting older. So they're at school. So we need to take them out, or we have to question if they want to come and join, because now it's not like they have their own life. They have their friends, they have their hobbies. So of course it's kind of hard at the moment, but we still like manage it somehow. And it's really fun to see them like having me as a mom, but also kind of also knowing that running is a part of my job and is a part of what I'm doing. So yeah, it's interesting to follow them away along as well.
Yeah. It must be like super inspirational for them to see as well, especially as they grow older and they start to understand it more, and you know they now start to take in these big occasions. But yeah, it's a really good point about them also having their own hobbies and their lives as well. Are they potentially mini trail runners? Are they orienteering, or what sort of sports are they into?
No, they're not. At the moment, they're just going to some polysportive stuff, like some we have like a fitness club in the city where we live, and they go there and they have fun because they meet their schoolmates. But they, of course, when we go to competitions, they sometimes race the kids race, or they have fun like watching us. But it's not that we are gonna run with them, except they're asking for it. I think I've been growing up with so many different sports. I've been doing ballet. I've been doing cross country skiing. I've been doing so many different things. And that probably has helped to be able to still race in high level, but also to still have this motivation to run. And that's what I want to show them, that there are lots of different sports and they can choose by themselves if they want to. Except like for me, it's only important that they move at some point, like that they do something what they love, but what it is, that's their choice.
Nice. I like that. And here in the UK, they are definitely shifting towards a kind of multi-sport approach now and trying to avoid early specialization. And that's certainly in trail running. I see that people who've had that variety of growing up and they they generally do it because they want to and they love what they do. I think for me, that's probably one of the biggest differences between what I used to see in the track and field world. Certainly youngsters who get into it, maybe not for the wrong reasons, but maybe parents want them to get into it, as opposed to trail running. I tend to find a lot of people are there because it's a way of life and they do things together. And yes, especially families, you can see it's almost like they've grown up in that environment. So it's just the normal to them to go out and explore the mountains. And then eventually that turns to running and exploring the mountains in a different way. That's really, really cool to hear. Well, maybe in the future we'll see them if it's their choice. But yeah, that would be some story.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, I would definitely love to follow them if they want to. But yeah, I mean, they're part of the youth camp, for example. So they see youth athletes already running. So yeah, we have to be careful with them since it's that big part. But yeah, I mean, they see girls and boys having fun running or moving. And that's already something I think is really important and really cool to see.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that movement is probably the most important part, right? Is looking after yourself and getting out and moving on a daily basis. And that is the most important aspect.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure they're taking inspiration from you and your husband as well, who is very prominent in the trail scene. I see him a lot around. I did have a question around that, Judith. Is it your husband who coaches you? Are you self-coached? I mean, how do you structure your training? How do you get the balance right around family life?
No, so my husband is not my coach. And that's important to say because, I mean, everything is kind of like, as I've said, trail running, my racing is a really small part, but still like we are working in trail running. We do coaching stuff. We do trail running weekends together. So our like life, of course, has a lot of trail running in it. And that's why he is not my coach, or also to have like something beside. I've had the same coach since 10 years now. It's Thomas Hurteler. He has been with me for, during orienteering, but also now in trail running. He has been the trail running and mountain running national team captain or chef until this year. So he stopped now. But and that was by coincidence. It's not because of that I've chosen him. So we have been working really well because he just gives me a plan every week. But he knows also that my life is so busy, and I try to do my best to like kind of follow the plan. But if not, it's not because I don't like the plan or don't trust him. It's because life is just playing differently. So and that works well. I don't need to talk that much to him if I don't have time or feeling for it, but I am allowed to talk a lot with him if I need it. And that's something I really appreciate, Thomas. And that's why it has worked so well together. And actually we will continue working together. So it's cool to, I'm quite Swiss, so I trust on things which are working, I think.
I like that. Don't fix what isn't broken, right?
But my husband, he coaches other athletes. So he has his own athletes, actually mostly in hobby athlete surroundings. But he also has been the Salomon athlete manager, for example, for the Swiss team. So of course he coaches athletes there nowadays also as a mountain running Swiss national team captain. So.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's where I kind of had the connection. I wasn't entirely sure because I'd seen you do some trail running camps and workshops and things, and I'd seen you both involved with that and noticed that he was a coach. And sometimes it's easier because the coach is there and they understand the lifestyle and they know how to balance it. But as you say, sometimes it becomes everything then. And there's no escape from what is trail running and what is family life. And I can totally appreciate where you're coming from there. But it's really nice to hear as well about, I think one of the most important aspects of coaching and what makes the best coaches great is that ability to understand the athlete and then also trust the athlete the same way you trust Thomas. Like he trusts you that if he gives you a schedule, you're going to do the majority of that and understand why that's there. But he's also going to trust you to play around with that when needed to, because you know your body better than anybody, right? And you know your lifestyle better than anybody. So that trust has to go both ways, doesn't it?
Exactly. And for me, like I could do my training plan for myself. It's not so like it's probably it would be easier. But having someone who tells you what to do and not always having the feeling I need to do more, that's something which helps me, because as a mom, as you've been saying, like my daily schedule is quite tight and I do not have times for 5 hours runs every day, or not even at some points. My runs are really short, if you want to ask me about that. But yeah, anyway, it's like not having this feeling I always need to do more. And that gives me like the trust in his plan that it helps. It's enough. And yeah, that's why, especially why we work together, and not because I need the plan because I don't know, or he does a better plan. But yeah, he gives me the trust that this is okay and this is the best we can get out of you with this training.
Well, you've teed me up quite nicely there, because you said if I want to ask you about that, and I think that's one area I'm really interested in, is the kind of the training, the preparation. It's sometimes some people are really open with it now on social media. You know, they have Strava, they put it on Instagram. There's it's everywhere. But I truly believe athletes don't show everything, and feel free to share what you want and what you don't want today, Judith. You know, you don't have to tell us all your secrets. But I think it is nice for the general public to understand what elite athletes do. And we were chatting briefly before we come on about how sometimes it's not as overcomplicated as people might think behind the scenes. So I would just like, a bit of an insight into your training, maybe something like a typical week to start off with, and then we can start to unpick that a little bit and go into a little bit more detail, if that's all right.
I think it's the hardest question directly, because there is no normal week in my life. I think every week does look different because, I mean, the only thing which is kind of normal is during school time, the kids have like their structured days. So they're gone from 8:20 to 12. They're there, then they will be back for lunch. And sometimes they leave for the afternoon school, but it's only once for one girl and 3 times for the other girls. So they are quite often at home. And that's why it makes it so different, because they have their hobbies. Sometimes we have meetings, sometimes we have stuff to do anyway. So yeah, I'm kind of like, normally I do a training in the morning when the kids are gone. And sometimes I fit one training in the afternoons if they're like at hobbies, or I take them with me to run. Or my husband is at home office, so he can like kind of be here when they're playing outside, for example. But that's already, like, you see, it's not like every week is the same. And during weekdays, I actually don't do trainings longer than 1.5 or 2 hours, because since I need to be back for lunch, I need to cook food, I need to prepare. It's not possible to do longer stuff. Like, 2 hours is already like the maximum to fit in during weekdays. And then weekends, we normally try to fit in some family time. And you hear it with that also. It's not like going out for 5 hours and then maybe we have 1 hour family time. It's more like doing my run or a short run, and then I have family time with them to be able to have like the time for the 4 of us as well. So depending on the season, of course, I would do some longer runs, but mostly in winter, it's shorter stuff. It's sometimes twice a day because I fit it in better, but it's a lot of alternative training as well, cycling, strength training. But yeah, there is no long answer, short question, long answer. Yeah, there is no week which is the same, so it's quite complicated.
I think no, it's actually really good to hear that, because I think, again, people might have this misconception that it's just almost like elite athletes are like robotic, you know, they just do the same thing and they keep doing it. But I think there's so much variety in there. You mentioned like the cross training element, the strength training. I assume you still get out on skis as well at some point in the winter. Does the snow come? Is that another challenge for you?
Yeah, I mean, running here in Bern, it's actually okay if you run flat. Mostly it's not icy. But if you want to do some like hills, we have like here at home, I only have a 300-meter hill. But this is where I train my normal trainings. And in winter, it could be quite slippery. So sometimes I would avoid it, depending on. And then, of course, cross-country skiing for me is the most convenient. but I need to drive 30 minutes to get to the track. And also if we're talking about 2 hours training or kids coming back to lunch, I'm not able to go there during weekdays. So I often just go there for weekends, mostly with the kids. And then we like swap each other because my husband, of course, wants to move as well. Or we do a loop with them and then we kind of eat lunch and someone would go for a longer training or so. Yeah, but it's important for me to have these cross trainings as well. I definitely love them and enjoy them. And it gives my body also the possibility to rest from running, which is kind of a hard impact on over the years, actually.
Yeah, especially when, you start going to those longer distances. And as you say, in certain periods of the year, the time in the distance goes up in training and we spend longer out there. And I think it is important to get a nice balance and to give the body the time it needs. And also you mentioned things like strength work being in the plan. I think it's becoming certainly more of a common topic for discussion over here in the UK about how important that is as we all get a little bit older, but especially with like female health as well. I think it's so important for people to still be going and doing that strength training, no matter what it looks like. And maybe there used to be a bit of a stigma around that quite a few years ago around how, if you go and lift weights, you might get bigger and those things. But thankfully now people are having the conversation around being stronger and healthier for longer periods of time. And we like a saying over here that if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And I think that's true when it comes to strength training.
Strength training for me has been a really important part, even though I actually don't like it as much. It has helped me to come back from pregnancies, but also to stay on the healthy side of a running athlete. Because I mean, pregnancies, they are hard on your body, and it's not like something you can plan with that you're back after 3 months, after 5 months, after 2 years. But the strength training, it helps you to prepare your body as best to maybe be able to come back again running. And I was lucky to be able to come back to running quite fast, but also because I really focused on strength training directly kind of after giving birth. And now, especially as you said, when you get older, you lose muscles and you lose this agility. I think you say agility and like really the possibility to jump and everything. And I think in trail running, it's really important. So that's why I still definitely need to focus on it. And I'm always good in winter, so I do 2 trainings fixed per week. But then when it comes to spring, summer, I lose it a bit. But it's like, as longer as I keep it with me, the better the season gets. So I really try to keep it at least till May, to have it twice a week and then only do core. But like, if I start to lose it in February or to skip strength training, the season longer on, like in September, October, I will definitely have some problems. So for me, this has been a huge change to my like whole year plan and to be able to be a good athlete also in the end of the year.
That's really interesting about that. I guess, well, a couple of things I want to kind of unpick there is, the first thing is, I think it shows to people that you can also like periodize your strength training within your plan. Like sometimes of the year, it's important to do more strength training, almost like lay down the foundations for strength work. And then as the volume or the intensity or the racing schedule increases over the summer, it might be better to drop that back a little bit. But if you do, as you've quite rightly pointed out, eventually you're going to start to lose some of those strength gains. You'll get some things in other areas, of course, especially as the elevation goes up and you start to race a little bit more. But you mentioned keywords again, like agility and all those things that are so important with trail running: agility, balance, coordination, which yes, they can be taught in the natural environment, and they can be taught in the mountains, but a lot of those things can also be done in the gym. But the problem with runners is you said this right at the start, is we tend to not like that stuff. We tend not to like being indoors. We tend to like being outdoors. It's definitely the hardest thing to do, is the strength work. But I think the message is clear, and certainly as a coach, I'm trying to preach this to my athletes: is don't skip it, because
No.
it's the easiest thing to skip, isn't it? It's the easiest thing to stop, but it shouldn't be skipped.
Yeah, and especially now, like the sun has come out, it has been foggy in the morning, and like I definitely would love to go out and see the sun and like enjoy outdoors. But I know I need to go to the fitness center later on. And I mean, yeah, it's not so nice because probably tomorrow the rain is coming back and then you would have your run outside and it's rainy. But I mean, you said about like kind of prioritizing the strength training during a year. I think if you're able to do it throughout the whole year, I think it's great and it's really helping. But for me, since I've only a certain amount of hours per week to be able to train, I still need to have some kilometers in my legs. So I can't do everything because I don't want to skip on like kids time or being together with family. So I kind of have like, let's say 12 hours or 15 hours, whatever, 20 hours. But in this, of course, I can't fit everything in. And that's why I'm kind of doing less in summer. But if you're able to it, if you have the time, or if you kind of feel it's helping, don't leave it, because as you've said, you lose it as soon as you stop it. And then coming back, actually, I've been back to it for 1 month now without training plan, but I start strength training directly kind of after the season. It is really hard to come back because you sore muscle every day. You feel like really hard running. It's not fun because you are like, muscle ache and everything. And it takes a while for me. But it's you're working and that's good and you have time. So it's perfect.
There's nothing worse than going back to the gym for the first few weeks and then walking around like you've been shot in the legs again, like you've done another 50k and all you've done is one gym session. And you're like, wow, this really does hurt. But yeah, I think one of the strategies that we see people use, and I know as a coach I try to use with some of my athletes, particularly parents, especially in the summer, because the summer also is the kind of the key race season, but it's also the most sociable time of the year for a lot of families. People go on holiday, the sun's out, there's longer days, there's lots of birthdays and celebrations, and lots of things going on that people have to try and balance. So one thing that we recommend, I'm not sure if you do this, Judith, or you've tried something like this, is kind of like shorter sessions with strength. We call it like micro dosing strength in. So it might be, as you said, core. Even if you can do 10 minutes of core 3 times a week, at least it's then in there. But that's like a strategy for parents that seems to work a little bit better as they get into the summer in particular.
Yeah, that's an important part, to keep it core is the base for runners, and I think it's important to keep it. As you said, I do 2 times 30 minutes, which is way less than 1.5 to 2 hours strength training during winter per like twice a week. So it gives you, or you can also combine it with a run. So go for a run and then have 20 minutes strength core, which is like great. And then you have done your training. So yeah, I think this is an important part, even though it's boring, but it helps.
Even though it's not as good as the running.
For me, it's not. It can be different.
No, definitely. That's why we run, isn't it? That's why we are runners, because that's what we prefer to do. And that's the best part about it. But I always say to people, it's going to allow you to do the thing that you love to do more. And if you neglect it, then there might be a chance that you're going to do the thing that you love less because you're not getting those the strength elements in. So yeah, it's a key part.
Yeah, and also longer, because I mean, probably if as a young athlete, you can run whatever you want to because you're like recovery fast, you're not having any problems. Also, it's the same topic with eating. If you're not kind of eating during trainings, you can do that for a long time, but your body is actually not recovering after some years. And it's getting worse and worse. So maybe for some athletes, it already stops after 2 years. For some, it works 10 years, but then they're totally destroyed. And I think this is, for me, like, that's something I'm actually proud of, to be able to still race after 25 years of like elite racing. And because I've done my work with strength training, I've done my work with eating and everything, like, and that's, yeah, I think you can do it for short amount of time without strength training, but then the problems will definitely come at some point, and that's quite a pity, I think, because then you're not able to do what you love, and that's bad.
Yeah, it's well, the day we never look forward to, right? Is that day when we can't do it maybe as fast as we used to. But it does kind of lead me on to the next part about transitioning this training to racing, and the trail world does seem to be becoming a little bit younger in some respects. You know, we're seeing certainly on the female side, you know, Naomi Lang from here in the UK has started to have a bit of a breakthrough, and she got herself on the podium at Marathon de Mont Blanc this year, as well as the World Championships. So she's had a bit of a breakthrough year. And I've noticed it particularly here that as trail running gets bigger, people are tending to come to it a little bit younger. However, I think I did some average stats at Western States this year. Yes, okay, it was the longer distances, but I'm pretty certain that the women's top 12, the average age was still like 36, 37, which I think is like incredible. And it goes to show that people can have longevity in the sport as well. When it comes to your racing, I was out on the course this year at Marathon de Mont Blanc. I was running from Vallecine and I was watching your race. And at that point in the race, you were a little bit further back, and you were descending down. And I remember just saying to Gemma, "Oh, Judith will pace this well. She'll come through and she'll catch them." And it turns out you're having a pretty rough patch, right?
I did. No, Marathon du Mont Blanc was really bad, actually. I mean, not the result, but the feeling. I had problems with my hamstring a lot. So I was in pain, and that was not fun descending. And I was actually, when I saw my husband the second time in Vallecine, I was kind of like already, my mind was swapping to stopping, because I didn't want to like kind of destroy my body for the rest of the season, especially for OCC. Up at Col de Monte, I think it's called, like before going the last uphill, I actually stopped, like really stood there and talked with my husband. But he was mean. He said that my girls would be up at La Flégère. So he just said that. And I was like, okay, thank you for that. But okay, I will try to go up there and see what's working. And yeah, actually the pain got a bit less during the last uphill, because the uphill was okay. And the other athletes got tired. And then technical downhills, they fit me better than this gravel to Vallecine. So yeah, I definitely was able to run fast in the last downhill as well. So that was fun, but it was a different experience. And of course, I think this race I did great just because of my mind being like able to want to see my girls, but also just to finish this race with a smile. And that's what I did. So yeah, but I had a hard time, and yeah, it looks like I was pacing well, but actually I was just suffering a lot in the beginning, and then I had some legs left to be able to push in the end.
This is the fascinating thing with trail running, because I'll be honest, you didn't look comfortable coming down to Vallecine. I remember looking and thinking, oh yeah, Judith doesn't look as comfortable as she usually does. And actually, that's a really tricky descent into Vallecine, very rooty, it's a horrible descent. And then even from Col de Monte, there's the descent down there through the gully and the rocks, and that's not pretty either for anybody who's not run it. They should. It isn't on the OCC course, but it is part of the CCC and the UTMB route, isn't it? So it's the one part of Marathon de Mont Blanc that really crosses over into the UTMB route, which is quite cool. But then, yeah, you must have had some motivation to go up to La Flégère, knowing the girls there. And for those who don't know, that is a ski slope climb. So it's a climb and you can just see all the way to the top. But I imagine that did just offload the hamstring a little bit, because you can become a little bit more quad glute dominant, and maybe that just helped to give the hamstring a bit of a break in that long climb.
Yes, exactly. And then, of course, also when you see the other girls struggling as well, it gives you motivation. And sometimes you don't feel your body as much anymore. I had this when I won Marathon du Mont Blanc the first time, year before. I saw Flavia Medellina just in front of me on this slope. And now it was the same with Naomi Lang. And I knew the first girl was not far away either. So yeah, it was kind of like, just give it a try and yeah, try what you can. But yeah, of course, this slope is not nice, but it's kind of fun because you see so much, and especially also seeing you passing guys, for example, it's quite cool because yeah, it's not so often you're able to overtake male athletes in the end of races.
Yeah, and but that is definitely a trend. You see, the males tend to go off too hard. The women definitely pace it better. Particularly with the OCC this year, I pay a lot of attention to pacing strategy, and you see where the women set off. You lead women are probably between the kind of anywhere between 60th and 100th in the overall race, and then by the end, the women are creeping into the top 20, top 30. I think Miao Yao was 23rd or something last year, which is incredible. And this year you see how far the women get up, and that was one of my questions around pacing, because it looked like you paced it well that day, but obviously there was different circumstances. Generally speaking, when I watch you race, Judith, it looks like you pace it well. Has that come with experience over time?
Yeah, I think yes. I mean, normally, as you've said, it's something I think is a strength of me to pace it right or to pace it good. But you could also say it's a weakness because probably I'm too scared to push too much in the beginning, like the young athletes do. And then maybe I would never get like all the way to the top in the end. I mean, this year I was second at 3 races. Yeah, you could like turn it in whatever you want to. But for me, I think I'm able to pace really well. And I have always like kind of the strategy to be able to still race in the end and not just kind of fulfill the race. And so also OCC, for example, my last 1 hour, I think I was almost as fast as the guys, which shows that I think the strategy to pace it like kind of remote or not to push too much in the first uphill helped me to be able to kind of push as fast as the guys in the end. And also, of course, coming closer to Mia Yao. Now she was only, I think, 2 minutes in front of me. So, I mean, if I would have been able to push more in the beginning, maybe we could have run together. But yeah, you have already mentioned it. There was the train and other stuff going on. So I think I like to be able to race fast in the end. And that's why I try to manage myself or my energy well during the race.
Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of context here for OCC, because I've kind of gone through my head and thought, we've mentioned the train, assuming everybody knows what happened. And there'll be people here going, what are they talking about? A train on a trail running course. But as Judith came into Martigny, which was one of the aid station stops, the course was changed this year in the OCC because of the weather, thunderstorms in the morning and the evening. So they redirected the course from Champay-Lac and dropped down into Martigny. And the 2 lead women at the time, Jolene Chipanego and Miao Yao, got away a little bit. And then Judith and Sarah Alonso was stuck at a road crossing with a number of men. And the train barriers came down and held you for a good sort of 45, 50 seconds, I would say, at least, which was highly frustrating to watch. And hopefully it never happens again, as you said, Judith. But before that, I want to ask your opinion on this, link back to something you've just said. I remember watching the race unfold from Champay-Lac, and there's kind of a flat section from Champay-Lac around 5K. And that was where I think it was Miao Yao put in a little bit of a surge, and it was quite clear to watch on the stream, this surge going in. And it looked like you made a conscious choice to say, no, I'm not going to go with that. Is that the kind of move you're talking about now, early in the race, where to win these races, do you feel like you might need to make that move? Or actually, was it still the sensible decision to hold back and stick to that pacing plan? And did it just seem a bit too fast too soon?
Yeah, I mean, I maybe need to say something about the course change, because I mean, this course change, of course, didn't fit me as an athlete as good as the normal course would, because we had 2,000 meters of uphill meters on one stretch, which is for the light athletes way better. For me, of course, like 1,000 up, 1,000 down, and up again is something I'm really good at, and is kind of favors me way more. So I knew this 2,000 meter gonna be hard and gonna be like tough. So I was a bit like scared coming in there, also still having a little bit of my hamstring problem in flat areas. So it was a decision I made to let them go. But I knew I could probably catch them again in a downhill towards Le Tour, if I'm like kind of pushing still in my best way. It was the same when Matisse went off also in the first uphill, or in the second uphill up to Col de Balme. No, not to, well, yeah. So she was also kind of going faster than I was. I caught her down to Le Tour again. So, I mean, it's a decision I do, but it's also because I'm not want to over push, and I don't want to be lactacid in these area, like in these uphills. And I still want to be able to fuel myself. And if you're going over some kind of like lactate state, you're not able to fuel yourself as much anymore. And yeah, probably it's interesting, but it's really difficult, and you never know what it's gonna be like in the end. But it's a millisecond, and you're deciding they're just too fast for you at the moment. And yeah, now it changed the race, but on the other race, maybe I could have chasing them back again, depending on the course as well.
It's a really fascinating point to listen to, because I feel like trail running has become a lot more tactical. They were talking about this year, the OCC was like 61, 62 kilometers. It was extended. And as you say, Judith, the point you're referring to, the almost like the double climb, where you climb from Martigny all the way up to the Fauclas, and then you drop down into Trient. But that's a short descent into Trient. It was barely a descent, and then straight back up to then Col de Balme, which is a heck of a climb, that one. So 2,000 meters, like broken up with like a 15-minute descent, which was just insane. So that's a really tough section of the course, and as you say, may not have suited you as well. But you have a split second to make that decision early on. And in that split second, you're processing everything. Like, if I go above that second lactate threshold, like, am I then going to burn fuel even faster? Am I going to be able to refuel? Will my hamstring hold up? And your mind is processing all of this so quickly, and having to make that call so early, not knowing what's going to unfold later on either. This is what makes it so fascinating, and this is why I wanted to get an insight into your thinking behind that, because it isn't just a straightforward decision. When the commentators are commentating, they're saying, "Oh, why isn't Judith going with them? Why is she letting that gap appear?" It's not just straightforward. There's so much to consider, isn't there?
Yes, and the thing is, I'm only able to change my racing strategy, my mind, my nutrition, whatever. Yeah. I'm not able to change the other athletes' decisions and what they feel. And yeah, I knew they will push hard from the beginning because they are scared of my downhill. It's how it is. And it's always like that in the moment. So I need to figure out how I will deal with that in the next years, actually, because that's just well known. But yeah, and so I know they will try to push away from me. And that's kind of how I need to get better in the uphills, but then maybe I'll lose the downhill. So it's always like kind of, and it's accepting how you feel at the moment and just try to keep calm and enjoy the moment, and yeah, be patient as well.
Yeah, and I think it's great to have people in the race who have different skills as well, like, because it's a bit like cat and mouse. You see people, they get a bit of a lead on the climb, and then they lose that lead on the descending. And yeah, like you say, that the old OCC course, or what we should say, the current OCC course that didn't happen this year, the normal one, I feel like that descent into Chamonix would have really suited you. And yeah, that would have been really interesting. But then it's not a surprise either that you made up time in the last section, because the descent down from Col de Balme all the way to Le Tour, then down to Argentière, and then into Chamonix, that was a long descent with some runnable climbing in there. So I'm not surprised that you were strong on that section either. But it is a puzzle, and that's, I guess, looking ahead to next year. I imagine is now the time you start to piece together the calendar for next year to have a look at where you might race, like long-term planning. And is that now looking at strategy as to where you race, what races suit you, and where you could be best?
Yes, so of course it's the time where we start to plan, or we have started to plan, because it's actually more complicated than just looking at the race calendar and see where I'm keen to race at, because we need to look at holidays from the kids' schools, and we need to figure out with trail running weeks where we already have planned with hotels and everything. So, or the youth camp who is in summer, we want to still do that. It's really important for us. So yeah, it's more complicated, and our plan for 2026 is quite fixed already. And then of course I'm looking at where I could fit some races which could be interesting in. So yeah, it's also because my husband travels with the national team. So will I go to Europeans or not? Do we go there together as a family or not? And it's really complicated. So I haven't picked the schedule yet, because of that and because of different reasons. It's also, of course, the first time I'm actually kind of not sure in which direction of distances I should go. As you've mentioned, with my age, I fit better in the ultra scene than in the Western States scene. But kind of, I definitely still love to race fast, and that's like the 30, 40 kilometer races. But there, of course, I'm the grandma at the moment. They're like 12, 13 years younger than I am, if you look at the age. So yeah, it's really interesting at the moment because it's the first time I'm questioning this distance topic. Until now, it was mostly like the marathon, up to marathon OCC, of course, but like kind of these distances. So yeah, we'll see. It's going to be really interesting. But for me, it's for sure I will be on the UTMB week at some race. We will see on which one, OCC, CCC, and then also Europeans probably will be on that calendar, but that's something which is still open. And then I try to find like different races which are good, like in case of race or athletes, because I definitely love races which are full of amazing athletes. I definitely choose one of the races with history or a good female race set up more than like a new race with no history. So that's always difficult. And yeah, so we will see. And it's going to be interesting. But also for me, races, I only do a few races a year. Mm-hmm. You've mentioned it's kind of like 4 main races this year, due to family reasons. And then I want to do some races which are really fun and which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear because, you look at your race results from this year. It started with a win in Chianti in Italy. And then, as you mentioned, 3 second places in Zagama, Marathon de Mont Blanc, and then the OCC. And then, I look at that and think Judith is like the best, if not the best, sort of 40 to 50k runner in the world. And every time we see you do stand on a competitive start line, and it's going to be a great race. And that's what we like about it. And then it's really interesting to hear you saying like, I may be thinking about potentially stepping up. But I also think it hopefully gives people inspiration that they don't have to step up too soon either. Because a lot of people, I love the longer distances. I love the 100Ks, the 100 miles. But I really think the 50Ks has come on the last few years, and it's becoming more of a thing now. And as a shorter distance athlete myself, I really like that because I feel like it still does feel fast. Like it feels like it's a bit more hectic and faster decisions are being made.
No, I definitely love it, and that's why I stick to that. I mean, so 5-6 hour maximum. It's like really going on lots of things and changes, and you need to run sub 4 kilometer per hour at sometimes like over the whole race depending on a course. So yeah, that's quite fast if you think about like 60K. Now, but for me, it's also like the topic about stepping up, and that makes it actually even harder. It's not, for me, it's not about stepping up. It's just, I've always been kind of driven by finding out what I'm able to do or what I'm capable of doing. And that's why I'm kind of keen to see if I'm able to manage a longer distance too. But it's not about me going up because you should go, or it's only the distance of 160K, which is interesting. Not at all. I feel like the longer you stick actually to the shorter distances, the more fun they are and the more competitive they get. And at the moment, OCC, for example, I would say it was one of the most competitive race, or it was the most competitive race at UTMB week. It's hard to say because I've been there on the starting line. I'm probably not allowed to say that. But I think if you look at UTMB score or ITRA score, it was a high level competition. And that's what I'm looking for. So that's kind of why, for me, these distances are important. And especially also for young athletes. I hate to see young athletes racing 50+ kilometer races because it's just too much for your body. And I'd rather like them to see racing 15 more years and maybe then stepping up for longer races. And we have always this discussion with the youth athletes in the Swiss national team or like in the youth camp when they're allowed to race longer. For me, it's like the longer you stay at short distances, the better you get in your future. And yeah, that's why I'm also like kind of like unsure what I'm doing. But yeah, we will see, because it's, as I said, it's more the intention to see whether I'm able to deal with this or not.
That's a really nice way to put it, is going into the unknown and finding out, because you don't know if you don't try either. So it's one of those things like, why not explore? And that's where everything starts. But I 100% agree with you. I'd prefer to see younger athletes competing, even if I think sometimes people are quick to jump to a different distance or discipline if they don't feel like they're competitive enough. But what what sport teaches us is that actually staying consistent at something for quite a few years can make you competitive. And if you're not seeing results in year 1, 2, or 3, it might be that you just need to wait for 4, 5, and 6 to come around, and just keep trusting that process. So I definitely agree with you. And when you were mentioning about, being super fast and like the 4 minute per kilometer, the races are getting faster. I think what makes the 50K so competitive is that you do get people stepping up from the Golden Trail series, for example. So people who are maybe better at the 20K distances. And then you also get people this year at the UTMB finals, people who wanted to go to Worlds who are stepping down, it just made this sweet spot in the CCC and the OCC in particular, which was super competitive. And I think it was a tactical choice, but you did have this nice blend, even Maud stepping back into that 50K as well, on the women's side, and people stepping up and down. It was incredible to watch, actually, but it was, as you say, highly competitive. Yeah, it's certainly creating some good narratives for next year already, which is why I'm so excited for 2026.
Yeah, too. I mean, that's something I really love to see aside, or watch at side, actually, to see how more competitive everything gets. And like also, of course, the longer stuff gets more competitive every year. And I think this is really cool. And it's, of course, also because more athletes are able to live from the sport, but also because you kind of like see so many nice role models also in the races who are like doing a great job, and that's really cool. And I'm really enjoying to have like lots of female athletes racing together also from the start, actually, because some years ago I was always by my own. You never raced with a girl in a race. Now you can be in a group of 10 girls the first 20K, and that's quite amazing.
Yeah, wow.
I think it's something which is really cool.
That is incredible. Yeah. And you mentioned role models, and that's kind of where we'll end this conversation, because as I mentioned, my wife Gemma shared the Hawker Camp with you this year, and she got to go on a run with you, and she was interviewed by Sport Shoes, and one of the questions was, who would you most want to go on a run with? And she said, oh, well, I actually got to run with Judith, and she's the person I'd most want to go on a run with. So as a role model, like, you are inspiring that next generation of trail runners, which I think is amazing. And a lot of those younger people, I think this is what is so good about the sport, is those people who you've inspired or other people inspire, they still get to race each other, which is quite incredible when, you know, they may be 13 years younger than you, but isn't that amazing that maybe they were inspired by you and now they're racing you and you're competing against them? Like, that's what I find fascinating about the sport. And hopefully there'll be many more start lines to come in, and there'll be a lot more youngsters to come through. But you described yourself as the grandmother of the 50K. I don't believe that to be true. I'll stick with the super mum, and hopefully the super mum's around for a little bit longer, even if you do go to the 100K next year. But it'll be, either way, it'll be an interesting story, and a lot of people will be intrigued to see that too.
Thanks. No, I'm really looking forward to go for more runs with Gemma. It has been a pleasure for me too. I'm really looking forward to the future. It's really interesting, and I'm really keen to find out what's next, and what to see even more people on the trails and in the nature. That's something I really enjoy. And I hope to go for runs with all these athletes in races or in trainings. And it's going to be amazing.
Amazing. Excellent. Well, you mentioned potentially Europeans. Will we see you before that, Judith? I know Europeans is early June this year. Slovenia, isn't it, this year? So early June. Does Swiss have a trial race, or will we see you early season before that?
I will definitely go for a UTMB race in spring. It's not clear which one yet. So around March, April, probably. Yeah. So I need to decide which one there. But and otherwise, we do have trials, but it's not yet decided if I need to run it or not. So we will see. Actually, on that, they will communicate that just in the next few weeks about the selection. So, and then, but my main goal will be UTMB week, and I will have time to prepare myself to that and have lots of other fun things. Maybe also do some flat running in the beginning of the year or things like that. So we'll see.
Nice. Well, if you choose Chianti again, then we may see you there, because we'll be going to Chianti again this year.
Oh, nice.
So that's obviously in March. So we may see you out there. But if not, we may see you on a flat race, maybe cross country or road in the end of the year, early next year. That would be cool to watch. I know some people did that last year. Sarah ran a Yeah, Sarah put out a really good half marathon, didn't she, early on? Shows how fast you need to be. It's incredible. Brilliant. Well, I've loved this conversation, Judith. Thank you so much for joining us. We've recorded this very early in the morning in the UK time, and I appreciate you getting up early to join us as well. I'm sure our listeners will have taken a lot away from that, and just want to wish you the best of luck for 2026.
Thank you, Louis, and thanks for listening to it, and I'm looking forward to see you on the trails.